Catch Big Red Wrap-Up, game highlights, and analysis on NET, Nebraska's PBS and NPR stations. Tuesday nights live at 7 on NET World and Facebook, and at 10 on NET.
Shut up. Stay in your lane.
Welcome to the Mind Your Own podcast with Aaron Sorensen and Sasha Durkin, where we stick to sports, except when we're not.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Mind Your Own podcast. I'm Erin.
I'm Sasha.
And we are recording this episode a little earlier than we normally would in a week. So we are going to do our best to keep the topic evergreen so that way when you listen to it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we don't have to re-record. You don't have to worry about...
We've already had to do that multiple times.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. But how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. I am tired. I didn't sleep well this weekend, not for any particular reason. It just, for whatever reason, I just didn't. Mm-hmm. And also, I did not realize how much energy it takes to be around people.
Yeah.
I mean, I
when
do realize that, but
yeah.
I just haven't. There's definitely, it's like working out. You definitely have to get yourself to a point to interact with people. And I am definitely I'm definitely not in prime form at this point.
Yeah.
So I was, for anyone who's curious who I was around, Nebraska finally had a home game on Saturday. Yeah. And I was one of the 40 media members allowed to cover, which I know probably sounds a lot if you're listening. That's about 25% of the typical media allowed. That's pretty standard across the board, not just Big Ten, pretty much everywhere. And, you know, I would say like out of 100%, I felt 95% safe.
Yeah.
I would
say
good. Nebraska and its staff did a great job, did everything that they could have to make it a safe environment. Everything felt relatively, just the distancing was good. Mm-hmm. I actually kind of was laughing because I'm like, I want this to be the case forever because I could spread out. My stuff didn't really matter. Normally I'm always like shoving people's papers away from my space because I'm like, you're encroaching on my stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind that one bit. And I actually kind of got the sweet end of the deal where I was sitting because I had individuals who were TV and radio. And so they were not in the box. They had seats because they had to have a seat when everything was done. But they were essentially down filming and doing all of that. So for myself, it was basically Derek Peterson, the host of the Varsity Club podcast, and I just sitting there very, very distanced from one another. So overall felt pretty good about it. Of course, there's always going to be things that you wish could have been a little bit better, but it had nothing to do with Nebraska and how it handled it. Just some people need to learn how to wear their masks. That's really all it is.
It should cover your mouth and your nose, both.
Yes.
Both of them at the same time.
At the same time. And I understand if you have to remove it to take a drink. Actually, I will say, this was the first time I've had to sit somewhere for a long period of time with a mask on, not outdoors. Mm-hmm. And I have had to do that for high school games this fall where, it's a few hours. It's 2, 3, 4 hours. And, I'm out walking around and it's uncomfortable, but it's not that big of a deal because you have airflow. It's fine.
Right.
This was the first time I was inside for several hours with a mask on. And I will be honest, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. Mm-hmm. I got really kind of hot at times, especially with the sun coming through the windows.
Yeah.
I drink a lot of water. So I understand if you have to remove your mask to take a drink of water or to chug a bottle of water. Mm-hmm. But even considering that, I still was not uncomfortable. Yeah. It was inconvenient. I'm like, I wish I didn't have to have this be my reality, but it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah. I have to do that a lot most days when I'm here. And I've just gotten used to it. I can't wear my glasses. I just always have to wear my contacts, which then maybe I'll just get LASIK because then I don't have to deal with either one.
Hey, I got LASIK almost exactly a year ago today, and it's so wild to me. I had a checkup a couple of weeks ago just because they insure your eyes for up to a year. That basically, if anything regresses, they'll fix it. And I still see, I think it's 15-20. I've had glasses and contacts since I was in elementary school. So this has been a wild year. And hey, if you ever decide to do it, I'm your gal when it comes to recommendations. So I just
been thinking about it. I just have always, well, I haven't always, I actually didn't need contacts or glasses until I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
My freshman year, and I think it was legit because of sitting in front of computers since elementary school, basically.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, like I regressed for really like quite a few years, but now as I've gotten older, my vision is improving. I don't know what's happening, but
that happened to me. My vision actually was it progressively got worse through my like adolescent years. I don't know what you'd call that time frame. And then started to get a little bit better. They needed it to just like settle, just be the same for a while. So that way. And so, you know, when I went to have my checkup last year, it had been pretty consistent. Like my eyes hadn't changed at all. So, I was definitely the person that they give you like an anti-anxiety medicine beforehand because you don't get put under anything. It's just numbing drops in your eyes. So you're awake and you're aware and they're speaking to you through everything. And it's really not that big of a deal. However, I am a person that like, we've talked about this before. I am riddled with anxiety to the point where like even yesterday, so yesterday being Sunday for myself, I was trying to clean around the house and I was getting so anxious about something that I had to stop and ask myself why. And it was because I was really hungry. And so I was like, I need to sit down and have something to eat because my anxiety is going through the roof. And it didn't improve everything, but it helped level me out a little bit. But like, I am just a human who is riddled with anxieties about anything and everything. So they give me that medicine. And all it's supposed to do, they tell you, is like, it's just supposed to take the edge off. It's just supposed to help calm you down so you can go back there. And as they're doing it, you don't, oh, no. I was the person I'm bawling. I'm like trying to compose myself, like to the point where they're like, do we need to give her more medicine? Right. Because I am just like, I am like shaking. I mean, I just like, I had this vision in my head that I was going to like have this procedure and immediately go blind. Yeah. Like, because they walk you, and they have to, good for them. They walk you through like the worst possible scenarios where they're like 1 in 100 people this could potentially happen to. And so you're like, my brain.
What if I'm the 100th?
Yep. My brain cannot allow me to be like, oh, those odds are pretty good in my favor. My brain is, I will be the one. Yeah. So yeah, I was the person that they were kind of looking at me like, do we need to give her more? Is she going to be okay?
I actually had a procedure done. It was in June. I had to have emergency oral surgery done because I had a tooth that had been cracked and like just falling apart for a while. And finally like a big ass chunk fell out and I was like, okay, I need to go in. And I didn't want to be put under because I didn't have anyone who could bring me anywhere. And then you have this is still in the year 2020. And so you don't want to have to go through the whole rigmarole of trying to figure out who can pick you up and, all that. So I was awake while they were taking a tooth out of my mouth and I have anxiety, but not like super badly. It just depends on the situation. But like during that, I legit was like, I wouldn't recommend being awake for a procedure like that if you don't have to be.
Yeah, I
get why they don't do it for eye stuff though, because you need to be able to keep your eyes open.
Yep, and they like have you like, they're like, look at this. And so like they need you. It's kind of probably similar to like brain surgery. They need you to be awake so that they can kind of process things as it's happening. But it's I'm very glad that I did it in hindsight, but it was one of those things where I will be perfectly honest. I was a absolute wreck prior to that. But looking back on the year, I'm very glad that I did it. Yeah. So maybe if somebody wants to sponsor you to get your eyes done,
I would gladly do it.
Yeah. See, this is
because it's not that like contacts and glasses can be expensive. Contacts tend to be cheaper if you just buy the whole year. And I'm lucky. Both my eyes are the same.
Oh, nice. Yep.
So that makes it a little bit easier. But to not have to worry about any of that anymore would be wonderful.
It is nice. I mean,
if anyone wants to just sponsor that, that'd be cool.
I was drying out my eyes, and this is way more than any of you want to know. But I'm just saying, I wore my contacts basically from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, which is not recommended. So, long story short, you should get LASIK.
Yeah.
This is now the point of this podcast is Sasha should get LASIK. No, I just, looking back on the weekend, like I said, it was good. I now know what to expect. But I also, like, to be honest with you, I read a thread on Twitter this morning from an individual. He is I believe he's a professor. Yep, he's a journalism professor at the University of Nebraska. And I see these threads about how basically his wife is immune compromised. Their greatest fear was him bringing something home because he has to go to work. But outside of going to work, they haven't gone to a restaurant. They haven't done really anything. And I think about that with myself. It was honestly hard because it is difficult not to feel hypocritical to a degree because I have been relatively I haven't really done, outside of work, I do a lot of grocery delivery. I have not gone to a restaurant since I think March. I haven't gone even to a patio at a restaurant. Yeah. The most exciting things I've done is if a neighbor has a bonfire or has something outside. We have been everybody's comfort level is different. And so I understand some people might look at me and be like, oh, you've been a little bit liberal in some ways, but I would feel like we have been fairly strict. Now we could be more strict. Absolutely. But it was hard to I think this is the one thing that really challenges me. It was hard to kind of feel good about Saturday and then cross that with this thread of, this is a thing that is legitimately happening to people. And there are people who are saying why are sports even being played?
Yeah.
And look, I get it. I get it outside of the NBA bubble where you can legitimately contain everything. I get it. Everything else is for lack of a better word, is a crapshoot. And I understand every opinion about it. I understand the people who are they should be playing because it's good for their mental health. They shouldn't be playing because it's bad for people's general health. I understand all of these different feelings. And I would say that was probably the most difficult thing to kind of wrap my head around, was sort of my responsibility within this. And so for myself, I'm you know what, I'm just going to show up. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do everything I can to be safe. I wore my mask. I had more hand sanitizer and Clorox and all those wipes and stuff that you could need. Honestly, I have enough at this point that I could start selling them on the black market for some money if I need to. It was hard to kind of square that a little bit, but you know what, it just kind of reiterates for me that the leadership around this has been so atrocious. And I'm not just talking for the record, if you hear that and you're responding and you get mad because of one level or another, I need you to know that I did not tell you where the leadership has been bad. You just assigned that. Because I think it's been bad everywhere. This is not a at one single point leadership has been bad on this. It has been everywhere. It is just I think everyone is trying to do their best with the information that they have or what they're being told, but everyone is being it depends on what state you live in. It depends on the day in some cases.
Yeah, it does.
You have teachers who are trying to do their jobs, but they don't have substitutes that are available. So they're having to weigh if they can be in schools or not. And I understand that we get mad when OPS or a school district makes one decision and then another school makes this decision, or one county makes this decision. And I hear you when you get frustrated by how inconsistent it is. So my point is, how nice would it be? And I'm not talking just Nebraska. I'm not even just talking about the United States, but how nice would it be if we had a consistent message on how to do this?
Yeah. Seriously.
Because I was watching somebody the other day I thought about this a little bit. New Zealand New Zealand, I think, is like in one of the best situations.
And
Australia
Australia
is not bad either. Yeah. And I was like, how do they do this? Like, it's not like travel has stopped to these two countries. And I saw somebody post on my favorite place on TikTok about, and this is why I love TikTok, because this is such a genius idea. They're walking you through the 2-week quarantine. So when you land in Australia, you immediately are bused to a hotel. Now, you don't get to decide the hotel. They basically, you get assigned and you have to quarantine there for 14 days and you have to have so many negative tests. And then once you hit that, you're free to go.
Right.
They are incredibly strict about who is coming and leaving their country, and there's requirements to do so. So like if you're going to go on like say a honeymoon to Australia, book those extra 2 weeks because you're going to be in a hotel room for 2 of them. That is like how, and I mean, I understand to some people they're like, that's really strict, but that is how they're doing it. So like I literally saw a video of New Zealand having a music festival last weekend. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, we're talking about.
Are we on the same earth?
Right. We're talking about lockdowns in Seattle and New York City. Like we had 15 college football games canceled this last weekend alone. I need to be clear about something. It did not ever have to be like this. How many times did we hear in the months and weeks leading up, if we just do this for 6 to 8 weeks, if we just are really, really tough on this stuff, if we wear our masks, if we social distance, if we shut things down and don't have like, you know, dine in restaurants and do this stuff, we can legitimately get a grip on all of this. Right. And here's where I'm talking about leadership. How many of you have been frustrated with the way the Big Ten handled something? Or you don't agree with the way the Pac-12 has handled something? Or you don't like how the NFL has handled it? Or you commend the NBA for, like, this is what I'm talking about. Yep. It's not all politics. It's literally like the leadership at all levels is so all over the place. And that leadership is depending on other leadership. And to be honest with you, it's just a mess. And we ask ourselves, how do we get here? And that is it right there. We are all doing whatever without any consistent messaging to each other.
And I think that
my hands are like all, I have my hands like so far out wide right now.
I think too that we as human beings have been inconsistent. So you have inconsistent leadership, and then, you know, think about how stringent you were in March about washing your hands and because we didn't have any idea what the hell was going on at that point. Well, now we have a bigger idea of what the hell is going on. And I think that maybe some of us have relaxed on how we were doing things before.
Oh, for sure. I feel that, like, I mean, there are some things that have become like habit for me. Like I put on a mask when I go into a store, or when I leave a store, I immediately put on, hand sanitizer. There are certain things that I've gotten, but like, yeah, there are other stuff where I'm like, you know, I probably would have been more strict about that in March than I am today. And
I still wash my hands frequently, but I don't do it for 20 seconds every time.
Yeah,
I tell you that.
We need to get back on that.
That's like little stuff like that. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, but how do I know, you know?
Yeah, it's just, you know, and this
like I'm always washing my hands, but it's like, okay, done.
I am, it is so hard, and I get it. Like, I so get it. Like, I understand why, like, there's so much frustration, and I understand why there's just, I get it. But, you know, as we are looking at, I mean, 15 games were canceled over this weekend. And I'm going to just be honest, it's not going to get better. I did an interview for somebody, an Ohio State publication was doing a story on canceled games after Ohio State's with Maryland was canceled. And they asked me point blank, do you think that this is it? Not necessarily for Nebraska, but just in the Big Ten. I was like, absolutely not. There are going to be so many more. There are going to be so many more cancellations. Honestly, if you're a Nebraska fan, settle in and just be grateful for every week you get, because I'm going to be honest, like when I walked into Memorial Stadium on Saturday, I had to take a moment and kind of like, almost like, so the last time I was in Memorial Stadium was March 12th. That was the day before the world completely shut down, which interestingly enough, the world shut down on Friday the 13th, and then we just had another Friday the 13th. Thankfully, the world didn't double shut down, but it's getting there. But I had this moment of like, it's been 8 months, and I'm just really appreciative, and it means a lot to be here in this space, but thought about that 8 months and everything that happened in that 8 months. And I was really sad at the same time that it's like, in those 8 months, what do we have to show?
Yeah.
What do we have to show for anything? I mean, here's me being very selfish. I had to postpone my wedding. I don't even know if my wedding's going to get to happen on the new date the way that I wanted to. Like, they're talking about maybe having vaccinations available by April, but that's not going to do me much good. Maybe like testing will be in a better spot where people can get tested before they come into events. But like, from a purely selfish standpoint, I'm looking at like, where will we have been in a year at that point? Like, where will we have been? And the fact that, like, I'm sorry, like, I see people just making really stupid decisions, and it feels really like we're all being really selfish. And so for me, I'm sorry, here is my selfish. Please stop being selfish so I can be a little bit selfish. Like, I want to have my wedding. And like, for people who are like, oh, just go down to the courthouse and just do something small. Like, that is not what I wanted.
Right.
Like, it is not fair for people who got to do what they wanted to tell me, just do this because it'll be easy enough. It's like, that's not what I wanted. If that's what I would have wanted, I would have planned it that way.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's not like there's a reason we were planning the wedding we were wanting to, is because that is what we wanted. And like, I am totally fine with adjusting, but I'm really getting tired of feeling like a lot of people are having to like bend, but no one else, like a lot of people are not willing to do it at the same time. But again, it goes back to like, what is our leadership? The fact that like we have even gotten here and there are games, but like,
I don't think
the Pac-12 is a mess.
Oh my goodness.
Like, Arizona State is like, I read a tweet about Arizona State. Like, they're like, half their team has COVID right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is not just like, this is serious at this point. And again, it goes back to, we're all just doing our own thing.
Yeah. Like, the consistency has to be there. Like, if we really want to get down to maybe something that everyone can agree on, the consistency for a football team has to be there in order for them to win on a consistent basis. The key being consistency there. So if you think about life as a football game, do what you need to do to win the game, which means social distancing, not freaking going anywhere. Almost said the F word. Wearing your mask correctly.
It's fine. That's where we're at.
It's just a consistency, and I think that the lack of consistency is how we got where we are. Like, that's just how it is. It's just like legit, guys. Think of it as a football game if you got to.
Yeah.
Be consistent, and you'll win.
And you know what? If you're gonna get there, you got to just finish the game. And to be honest with you, we have been atrociously bad at finishing games.
Yes.
And I'm talking about humans, not just Nebraska football.
Right.
But speaking of which, Nebraska football did get a win over Penn State.
Yeah.
Penn State is 0-4 for the first time, and I don't have any idea how long.
That's been a long time, I think.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, that Penn State team was probably the worst team Nebraska has seen so far this year. But a win is a win. Wins bring you they bring a different level of motivation. They change.
It could be
mood.
A mindset shift,
right?
You know, that could have been the one that they needed.
Yeah, we don't know, and you know, I think for myself, nothing I saw in person was any different than anyone saw on TV. The defense really did everything it needed to. I remember, like, toward the middle of the fourth quarter, I was like, did Nebraska score enough points in the first half? Because that is really what this is going to come down to. Because the defense is going to have to essentially step up. Because here's the thing. Luke McCaffrey got the start at quarterback over Adrian Martinez. I will be honest with you. I have no idea if that's going to be the case going forward or not. I have no idea if, like, here's the way I will put it. I don't think that competition is done.
Agreed. I agree with you 100%.
I think if Adrian has an incredible week of practice, he's
probably
going to start the next game. If it's not this week, maybe it's the week after. Like, it is going to be a case-by-case, week-by-week basis, because Luke played well enough to win, but he didn't play well enough where I think he closed the door.
Right, yeah.
Because there were still some...
the starting the quarterback position is what I meant.
I don't think I think you see, so this is where youth and inexperience also comes in. He is he's quicker with his decisions, but he got bailed out on a couple of his decisions where I was like, oh no. Like there were a couple of moments where Penn State nearly picked him off more than the one time that they did.
Yeah.
Now, here's a good thing. Nebraska didn't fumble with him, so that was great. I do think that has a lot to do with having Cam Jurgens back at center because that is his spot. Like it's nice to have the starting guy there. You know, the thing that I have to just like, I feel like this podcast in the last couple of weeks has just been all over the place. So thank you for sticking with us because now here's where I'm at. But I saw something on Twitter kind of happening after the game on Saturday. And to be honest with you, I didn't spend a ton of time with it until Sunday because I was like, I just don't have time to think about this. People were sharing photos of Adrian on the sideline and were like, I feel really bad for him. He looks so sad. I'm like, I don't know if that's how I would like
gather that at all.
I'm not, you know, this is the stuff that you don't see on TV. I will tell you all a quick story. So I'm sitting there and I will admittedly tell you, I was watching the sideline for Adrian because I was curious what his behavior was. And he was everywhere. Like he was like, so at one point the offensive line comes off the field, sits down. Greg Austin is sitting and having a conversation with them. Adrian comes and plops his butt down with the offensive line, says something. And like the look that Greg Austin gave him was amazing. It wasn't like, why are you here? It was kind of like, oh yeah, like I'm agreeing with you. It was like, he was as much a part of the game as he could be, not being actually physically in it. He was at times with the running backs. He was at other times over by the wide receivers. There were times he was like, he didn't really go with the defense a whole lot, which understandably so, not his position. But yeah, I just was like, I don't see somebody who looks sad. I don't look and see somebody who looks defeated. I see somebody who is exactly who
jumped into a leadership position like he has been.
He's a captain for a reason.
Exactly.
I had the fortune of getting to know Adrian after following him around for a full day for our yearbook cover 2 years ago for a yearbook story, but then also just in that time frame getting a chance to like know him. Here's the way I will describe Adrian. Adrian is incredibly smart. He is incredibly kind, and he's incredibly mature for his age. Now, he has a younger brother, but he was like an only child in a way for a good chunk of his life. Yeah. He feels like an only child to me. Now, some people, because I'm an only child, some people are like, well, only children are selfish. We can be. Like, we can be. We can be a little like dramatic. Like, that's fine. But the thing that I've always found with only children is they also have a different, like they speak differently because they grew up mostly only talking with adults. Right. That is what Adrian feels like to me, is he feels like somebody who has grown up talking with adults. But he lost his mom. He's had a lot of things happen in his life. This is all like his dad has done an incredible job. Like his family has just done an incredible job raising him. He is very much a product of his environment. Yeah. And like, he's also just who he is. Everyone's personalities are what they are. I am like not worried about Adrian Martinez. And I'm not worried about him for a couple of reasons. If it means like, if it doesn't work out for him at Nebraska and he transfers, which by the way, I have no insider info. I'm just saying that because I saw some people talking about it. Okay. He will, if that ends up being a route for him, it will be because that was the right decision and right route for him. Right. But he's not going to check out anytime soon. And like I said, I don't think that competition is over. Right. I think if he can find his footing and if he can find his confidence and kind of get himself back, he has as much of a right to
starting position as Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah. Now, Luke McCaffrey is great too. He showed a lot of he showed the pedigree of his family. Yeah. He's a quick decision maker. He's got quick legs. He clearly has a good rapport with some of his younger receivers. Like, it worked well for him. But I still think that offense just has, I don't know. I just am somebody who, if I'm looking at this and I'm like, yep, job's done, it's Luke's forever, I'm like, I don't know. I think, so if you looked at Adrian on the sideline and your takeaway was, the man looks defeated,
I think that you're projecting.
I think, yeah.
Because I didn't see that and I wasn't there. I didn't pick up on that.
This is coming from somebody who feels like, so one of my strengths is empathy. So that means like I overthink everything about everyone. I feel bad about everything all the time. I didn't feel that way with him when I saw him. I was like, So Brandon Riley, a former Husker, shared a photo of him yelling on the sideline and said, favorite picture of the day, team player, nothing but respect.
Yeah.
Because that was what he was doing. He was as invested in the game not being in it as he would have been if he was right in the middle of things. Like, they had a huddle, he was running to it. They were getting ready for the offense to take the field, he was sprinting to that group. Like, he is as much a part of it as he wasn't. And you know what? Sometimes that kind of situation is good.
Yeah.
Maybe he needs a little bit of time to step back and go, all right, let me see this from this side of things.
Yeah.
Because clearly he was struggling with the decision making when he was in the game. Maybe it wasn't a bad thing to take a step back.
And I think too, just to like totally throw a wrench in this entire conversation, maybe he needed that for like, obviously for that perspective, but I'm wondering if he didn't have the trust in some of those key players on the offense, and seeing it from that side maybe is like, okay, like other side of the coin thing. Like, all right, now I can see it from this side and I'm just watching all of this play out. Because when you're in those moments, sometimes I think, whether it be a football game or not, I think it's hard to see like bigger picture things. Yeah. So like maybe there's like little stuff that he saw doing that then helps him when he does start again or is back in the game. You know?
I think for myself, like, that's actually a really good point. How many times when we take a step back, so we're dealing with a situation and everything feels really, really clouded, or we feel overwhelmed because we can't see a pathway forward. And all it takes is sometimes taking a step back and seeing the situation a little bit differently, or seeing it through someone else's perspective. Yep. And suddenly now you have a different understanding. Maybe it doesn't change everything. Like, I'm not saying like Adrian woke up on, Monday morning and was like, I'm a new person.
Right.
Like, he still has things he has to overcome. But I'm going to say that I feel like the way that he approached the game against Penn State, he will be better for it.
Absolutely.
No matter what happens, whether that is a career at Nebraska, whether that ends up somewhere else. You don't has Adrian, he got a lot of hype going into his second year, Heisman contention. Like, everyone was like, oh, he's going to contend for the Heisman. Maybe we were a little bit premature to do that.
Not at Nebraska.
No. But also, like, y'all need to watch yourselves, because some of you are already doing that with Luke McCaffrey, and he has started one game. Yeah. Like, this is the thing, is everyone just gets excited, and he showed a ton of potential his freshman year. And you know what? That resulted in people having high expectations, expecting the world. That didn't pan out in his second year. Some of that was not all his fault. Yeah. I would even say this year, the quarterbacks, both Luke and Adrian, they're in a bit of an uphill battle because there's a lot of pieces around them that aren't working. Yep. I mean, we knew going into this, for the record, everyone, like, let us remind ourselves, we knew the wide receivers were going to be a big question mark. Yep. We knew that the running game was going to be a question mark. These are not things that are new. Like, I love how,
they shouldn't be surprising to you.
Oh, I know. I love how we spend all off season, which, by the way, we had extra off season.
Yeah.
Talking about the positions where we're like, yeah, the offensive line looks like it should be good, which it has been pretty good if all of the players are starting where they're supposed to. Yeah. The quarterback should be all right. Yeah, they've got the experience. They're all right. But wide receiver, kind of questionable. Running game, yeah, we'll see who, backs up Dedrick Mills. Like, there's all of these question marks that we talked about, and guess what? Those question marks
playing
still
out.
exist. All of the things that we assumed would not be great
aren't great.
And so that isn't like, I don't understand why we're so shocked sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I think that if there is glimmer of hope ever in a game, period, at all, it then gets exacerbated. And in a year, in a season that is unlike any other that we may ever see in our lifetime, I think it's even more amplified. Like, you see the glimmers of hope and you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe it's not that bad. At the end of the day, it's still the same team and those question marks are still there, and they have a shortened season to figure that out. Like, and they hadn't played any live contact.
There's a reason none of this matters.
I think it's exacerbated in a way almost. Like, the glaring things that are wrong and issues, I think are exacerbated, but the one glimmer of hope that happens like way over here in the game where they didn't screw up or didn't get a penalty on the first freaking play of the game, like, oh my God, now they're great.
Yeah. I think
Like,
we all
come
need
on,
to
guys.
remember, like, coaches love to say this thing. They love to say, oh, we just need a spark.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
What exactly define spark for me? Like, somebody just define it, because has this, if say Luke gets the start against Illinois, and let's say he doesn't play all that well, is the spark gone?
Did it fizzle out?
Can the spark come back?
Right.
Like, define your sparks. Like, I think when you talk about a spark, it doesn't need to come from one player. It needs to come from a team as a whole. And this is why leadership is so important. I have seen every comment about how Luke is a better leader, how Adrian's a better leader, how Matt Masker's a better leader, how Logan Smothers. I really don't care. Pick your quarterback. You all feel one way or another. It doesn't matter. Every single one of those players, here's the difference. When you say, oh, I think Luke's a better leader, or oh, I think Adrian's a better leader, oh, I think this, congratulations. You're essentially saying that you feel like Nebraska has multiple leaders on its team. Yeah. That's your spark.
Yeah.
Because that means those players are going to be able to do what is needed to win a game when it matters. It's one of those things where the backup quarterback is always the most popular player on a team. He is always the most popular person. I mean, how many times have we seen when I mean, literally Scott Frost lived this. Yeah. I mean, even when Eric Crouch took over the position, people are always like, the backup quarterback is the best quarterback. Yep. Like, it is what it is. It doesn't matter. If I really do sincerely believe when Frost says we have two really good qualified players at this spot, I actually believe him, because most of the time, I'm going to tell you honestly, when you have two quarterbacks, you essentially have zero. Like, there's a reason there are people who are like, if you have two quarterbacks, it's like having no quarterbacks, because you don't have the one person. In this case, I legitimately do think Scott Frost, by some act of God, has two good quarterbacks. Yeah. And to be honest with you, that's only going to actually make things tougher. I don't envy the job and position he has in making decisions for this, but, like, you know, I don't think either is going to be sitting and pouting on the sideline.
Right. Here's what I like. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but here's what I see going forward. Whoever is best equipped to lead the team that day based on the opponent is the quarterback who's going to start.
And you know what? Who cares?
And this season, it doesn't matter.
No.
Like, I think next year that poses a problem. Yes. But this season, I don't think it freaking matters at all.
If you
give them both reps,
who cares?
It's not like, sorry guys, Nebraska's not going to be playing for the national championship.
Honestly, no one might be.
I know,
like,
exactly.
At this point, like, they're already talking about delaying that sucker. Yeah. And, like, honestly, again, going back to COVID, who the heck knows? Like, it might not matter. So if I'm Scott Frost,
of all years,
just do
to have a quarterback battle, whenever,
throw him in and out like every other play. Just be like, okay, you this time, you this time, you this time. Like, I don't even care. Yeah. Like, at this point, like, throw one of them in a defensive back if you really want to see what happens. Like, it is, okay, speaking of defensive back, pull Cam Taylor-Britt, who was a quarterback, and pull him over and just throw him there and see what happens. Like, honestly, this season doesn't matter.
No, it does not.
It doesn't matter. If I'm a coach,
I would
I'm
honestly
doing everything just super weird and just trying things.
If I was Scott Frost, which I clearly am not, but I would be any kinks that they
have the headsets, though.
We do. I need those aviators though to really pull us off, and a Diet Mountain Dew. But if I was a head coach of any team really, and I was in Nebraska's position specifically, any kinks that I know about that are happening in practice, I would be throwing any player in wherever I think needs more practice at a certain position in live game reps. Get all that shit worked out now, because then next season, when hopefully things are normal, then you have a clearer path forward, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just try everything. So, like, you want to see what Xavier Betts can do, keep playing Xavier Betts. You want to see what this random person can do, try that. Like, to me, there's just there's no right or wrong at this point. Like, any win is great, but it doesn't matter.
Any game played is great.
Yeah. Like I said, for everyone who's like, well, it's about, I mean, honestly, I don't mean to say it quite like this. what is the ultimate goal here from
this season?
If you're
really.
a Nebraska fan, what do you want? Like, at the end, when you look back, what is going to make you happy? And I mean that because, like,
Sincerely.
there's a lot of bowl games that aren't even being played. We don't know if the college football playoffs are going to happen. I mean, heck, the Heisman got pushed back. So, like, everything seems like it's kind of going that direction.
Yeah. And you don't even know that they're going to play all of their games this season. And I guarantee you that at least one more cancellation happens.
For sure. I'm just waiting.
So what, they play 6 games? What do you glean from that in any way?
No, I feel like we're just playing, like, honestly, Saturday, sort of. I kept forgetting. I said this a couple of times. Saturday, I kept feeling like I was at the spring game and I was forgetting that there was also another team there. So when Penn State ran out on the field, I was like, oh. There they are. That's what's going on. It was weird. I just think, like, this is one of those things where, like, we just have to embrace the chaos, embrace the weirdness, embrace whatever this is, because none of it really honestly matters. We're going to overthink and overanalyze and break everything down. But if I'm in the coach's position, this is an opportunity to try things, to see what I have, to get experience where we need it, and really just use this as an opportunity to, springboard into 2021.
Work out the kinks on your offense, because obviously there are quite a few.
Yeah, and they're still there. If you thought the offense against Penn State was good, my friends.
Sorry, but I don't think Penn State. I honestly, at the end of the game, said, is Penn State that bad, or did Nebraska actually figure something out? And I'm pretty sure it was the former.
Penn State's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I'm honestly, like, shocked by that. Like, honestly, what is going on? Like, that was not a Penn State team that I'm used to.
Yeah.
And it felt like, who tweeted this? Mo Berry, from a former Husker. He tweeted essentially I'm paraphrasing because I'm too lazy to just go type in the tweet and, like, Google it or search it on Twitter, whatever the words are the kids are using these days. He basically said something like the way Penn State was looking on the sideline was how they looked in 2017 as Nebraska, which is, like, ton of talent, just, like, no motivation, no energy, no nothing. And to be honest, like, part of me is like, is that because that's a thing going on with James Franklin's team, or is it just because of 2020?
I was going to say probably because of 2020, because, like we just said, what are you playing for?
No, I mean,
and if you haven't won a single game at all in a season that's already shortened, I would have no motivation.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's hard. Is,
which
like,
sucks, but
that's not even, like, you could point to the coaches, but I think James Franklin is a better coach than, like, allowing that to be the case. Like,
right,
I'm not willing to go, like, well, obviously James Franklin has lost his team. I think James Franklin is too good of a coach to make that argument. Something is just not right with Penn State. But I'm going to just say they'll probably figure it out by 2021. I'm really not worried about them. Like, they seem to be able to figure things out and bounce back. That is something that it just is what it is. So if I'm Nebraska, use this year. Like, honestly, you go into every game with no idea what's going to happen. Who thought Minnesota would be playing the way they are this year? Who would have thought Indiana would play the way they are this year? I mean, heck, Maryland has been all right this year. Even Rutgers has done all right with Noah Vedral at the helm of that whole ship. Like, things are weird in 2020, and
they're going to continue to be weird. I honestly almost wonder if they do both quarterbacks in the next game. Honestly.
I hope so. I really
for the majority of the game.
I just really want this to keep being, like... So if anyone has noticed, like, Nebraska doesn't release a depth chart, which this is the first year in my time covering the team that, like, I don't get a depth chart. We get this, like, 5 minutes before the game. We get the projected depth chart, which means, like, I mean, Adrian was the projected starter on Saturday.
Right.
So they do this thing where it's just, like, the projected. It doesn't mean anything. Honestly, like, if I'm Scott Frost at this point, like this is incredibly, like, I'll just be really honest. It's a little bit annoying as a media member because like our job is to just tell you what's going on and we can't. And I'm sorry when you get in my mentions and you're like, why aren't you telling me who's starting? Because I don't know. But if I'm Scott Frost, as much as that just annoys me as a media member, honestly, from just a human level, go off, like enjoy this, like just keep like,
because next year it ain't gonna be like.
well,
that.
if you want to keep making like Kirk Ferentz think that like you're starting this guy, but you actually start this guy, cool. I don't care. Let's just get weird. Like if you want to like suddenly make it seem like Logan Smothers is gonna play, all right, I'm fine with that. Like I just don't even care anymore. Like this is one of those seasons where like embrace the chaos. We've been saying this forever. Embrace the chaos. Get weird. Stop overthinking things.
Yeah, it nothing means anything.
Honestly,
really,
we should name this episode "Embrace the Chaos."
I wrote, "Let's just get weird."
That works too. Embrace the chaos. Let's get weird.
Yeah, like, hey, Triple B, that needs to be a shirt.
Make it a shirt. Although, like,
let's just get weird.
Speaking of
Nebraska.
shirts and Kirk Ferentz, I just have to like share this really quick. Did you see what he said after their win the other day?
No.
Oh my gosh. So where is it? The Big Ten has really good trophies, really, really good rivalry trophies that don't exist for Nebraska. Sorry, Nebraska got pretty much the short end of the stick, although I will make a case for the Heroes Trophy.
Yeah.
I understand it's a sponsored trophy. A lot of people feel weird about it, but it also has the names of a lot of heroes on it that have actually done really cool things in both Nebraska and Iowa. So from my perspective, trophy overall look is a little lame. The meaning of the trophy and what it symbolizes and the names on it, really cool. It doesn't matter. Anyway, back to what he said. Kirk Ferentz said, "We figured we'd take Floyd with us," Floyd being the trophy, "and leave the timeouts here." And everyone was like, "Print the damn t-shirts," because they didn't use all of their timeouts.
Yeah.
They took Floyd. I'm living for petty Big Ten right now. The Big Ten is like just slightly losing its mind.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Oh my gosh. I thought Twitter was going to literally burn in a dumpster fire when, who was it? Adam Rittenberg suggested that Ohio State and Alabama play. I was like, oh Lord, I'm in Nebraska. This is going to be terrible.
Positive. Like, was I the only person who read that as sort of like, I read that as him being sarcastic?
I did not read it as him being sarcastic.
Really?
But I literally just jumped on, and that was the first thing I saw that day, and I was like, well, I have to say something sarcastic. The way I read it, and I could be totally wrong, is I thought he was kind of being facetious a little bit. Like, I thought he was kind of being like, obviously the only thing that makes sense is Ohio State, Alabama. Right, yeah.
Because I was like, why would anyone reasonably make that suggestion?
Yeah.
But maybe he was like, honestly, there are a couple media, like national media people that are definitely playing at Nebraska's, pandering to your anger. I don't know if I think Adam Rittenberg is one of them, but there are others that are definitely like.
I don't think we even need to name them. I think you know who they are, guys.
Yeah, and if you get upset, again, this kind of goes back to that like leadership comment. If a name has come to mind, you have put it there. Also, stop reading their stuff then.
Yes.
Like they're pandering to you.
They continue to do it because you are playing into their hands.
Yes.
Stop.
So just take a chill pill because they are getting what they want, which is the clicks and the reads. And for the record, I need to explain this. If you click on something, that is not clickbait. I need to be clear about what clickbait is. I'm so tired of people being like, ugh, I read this column and it was total clickbait. The way it's clickbait is if you see a tweet that's like, "You will never believe what Scott Frost said," and you have to open that to get to the answer, and the answer is usually not anything substantial.
Remotely close to what,
That is clickbait.
Yes.
That has baited you into clicking so you can see it. If the tweet is, quote from Scott Frost,
and then the quote,
and then
part of it.
Here are my additional thoughts on this, and like you don't agree with those thoughts, but you've now shared that with everyone, and you've all clicked on it. That is not clickbait. That is what that is supposed to do.
That's you being triggered. That's what that is.
I just don't. We stop using clickbait when it doesn't make sense. Like
if you got angry because of someone's opinion, that isn't clickbait.
Also,
is what Aaron is trying to say.
There are people who think clickbait is like a tweet that they don't like, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is clickbait." I'm like, there isn't a link to click on. What are they clicking on? God, I have so many opinions. This is bad. This is bad. This is chaos. It's fine. Let's just
Embrace
keep getting
it.
weird and get...
Chaos is your best friend in 2020.
All I know
just accept it.
is I will be at Memorial Stadium on Saturday, pending everything. No, games don't get canceled. I'm actually going to be at Iowa City on that Black Friday game, which I am actually kind of looking forward to because I have not left the state. Like, to be clear, I've not left the state outside of driving to Council Bluffs for maybe like Sam's Club.
Yeah.
Since I think the last time I traveled out of state was honestly the College Football Awards, which would have been December of 2019.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So
almost a year.
yeah, it's fine. Really love just like staying here forever. So that's 3.5 hours from Omaha. So like, I'm really excited about that. Like, just like massive trip. Honestly, none of these are none of these are guaranteed. I just, let's just keep getting weird
Keep
and
crossing our fingers.
and the least we can do for each other is, we say this a lot, but wear your masks, be smart. Don't. So I'm going to end here. There's a video that's going around of a bunch of Nebraska students tailgating and partying on Saturday. And I understand it's frustrating. Like, I understand the initial reaction when you see that is to get mad at every single one of those students in that video. And while annoyed, I also remember how I was when I was in college. And there's a level of privilege when you're in college that you don't really see beyond. You don't really always see the world beyond yourself. And I'll use an experience for myself. My senior year of college was when H1N1, the summer going into my senior year of college, H1N1 was the virus that was really concerning. And I was going to study abroad that summer, and they were talking about potentially canceling all trips because they didn't know if they could reasonably allow students to travel outside of the country, especially with this virus that was that was not understood at the time. My biggest concern was not being able to go on my trip. Like, I felt like I was like, I remember feeling like I was being slighted. Like, people were doing me wrong.
Yep.
And you know what? So many years later, I look at that, and that was an incredibly selfish viewpoint on my side. Like, if I had to cancel, if we hadn't been able to study abroad because of that, tough shit.
Yeah.
But that is me saying that now, almost like 11 years later.
I think a lot of people at that age have the same outlook because you can't see. I feel like when I was that age, I couldn't see very much beyond myself.
No.
So anything that happened like that, I took it personally. When you look back at it now, when you've matured and you have a bigger worldview, it's different. It's totally different now. You could see that that's selfish, but I don't think that when you're in that, you see that. You don't see it that way. You don't have the worldliness or the knowledge to know otherwise, I don't think. And it doesn't matter how many people tell you that it's wrong.
Right.
You're right.
And watching the responses to that video on Twitter is exactly that. You have people who get it and you have people who don't. And to be honest with you, the more that we yell at them for being dumb or whatever,
The more they're going to go do it.
The more they think that we're just being unreasonable.
Yes.
And this goes back again, all the way back to leadership. Like, we're not providing the right leadership to like help students understand. Like, if you're going to put them in dorm rooms, if you're going to put them on college campuses in a lot of ways so that you can have sports, how do you tell them don't go see your friends, don't go do stuff?
Yep.
Like, there's a lot here. And so like, I saw that video. Yes, I am with all of you who felt outraged when I watched it because it made me mad. But I'm also not willing to put all of the blame on those students and be like, they're being selfish.
They're being irresponsible.
But how many of those will understand 10, 15 years from now,
like,
okay, that
oh
was
my
really selfish
gosh,
of me.
yeah.
Because I remember, and this comes again from a point of privilege, when I was in college, my biggest concern around H1N1 was not being able to go study abroad. Like, that was my concern.
Yep.
Now looking back on it, like, that trip would have always existed, with or without. Like, I would have figured it out. Like, we would have had another opportunity another time.
Right.
So, we kind of always end these episodes with like maybe things maybe things that like you can do to challenge yourself over the next week. How about we've brought this one up before. Show yourself some grace, show others some grace, and just remember that like we're all doing our best. We can all probably do a little bit better. So if you're watching that video and you are outraged and like you in your opinion are doing everything right, great. But how can we maybe be even better? So like
better educate and better lead.
That's one of my favorite, and I'm gonna actually look this one up because this I don't want to butcher it. But Ruth Bader Ginsburg has a quote that I love, and now I'm gonna see if I can find it really quick. If I can't, that's fine. It's fine. Okay. Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. Remember that. And I do this a lot where I sit there and I think about when I want to go really hard at something, is it going to lead you away from me or are you going to lead you with me? And I'm not perfect at this, but this is something that we can all work on is like as we're trying to understand the world and how it's shifting again because it looks like we're all heading toward more lockdowns and more strict regulations again. How do we fight for this and how do we do it in a way that others will see it and go, I want to join you? It's not going to be yelling obscenities at each other on Twitter.
No,
I can promise you that.
No, it isn't.
But until then, you know what? Just embrace the chaos.
Let's just get weird.
Get weird.
In a safe way.
If you're Scott Frost and you're listening to this, get weird with your offense. It'll be fun. Why not? Well, I think we did it. I think we have an episode that hopefully will be relevant to you no matter what.
Yeah. Always get weird.
Always get weird. That is the evergreen lesson forever. Tell your friends. See you next Wednesday.
Bye.
You love Husker sports. We love Husker sports. So that means you need to catch Big Red Wrap Up, game highlights, analysis, all of it on NET, Nebraska's PBS and NPR stations. It's every Tuesday night live at 7 on NET World and Facebook, and then again at 10 on NET. That's Central Standard Time, though, for those of you who do not live in Nebraska. Again, you love the Huskers. We love the Huskers. Don't miss Big Red Wrap Up.